Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished viewers. Welcome again, another web panel of SETA. Today, we are going to talk about Turkish foreign policy in the eve of the new century. Today, as the 10th of November, Gazi Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's passing anniversary, the founder of Türkiye, we commemorate him with respect and gratitude. As I mentioned for the title of the today's panel, I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Associate Professor Dr. Erman Akıllı. I am Assistant Editor of Inside Turkey, and I am faculty member of the International Relations Department of the Ankara Hacı Veli University. Today, we are going to talk about Turkish foreign policy in the eve of the new century. But before starting to talk and analyze about the new century's foreign policy, it's essential about the Turkish foreign policies change throughout the years from foundations to very today. During this hundreds of years, Turkish foreign policy encountered many challenges, endured crisis, and also lived the transformation processes. From beginning to today, Turkish foreign policy is always related for being the mediator of the peace, both in the region and on the world itself. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed participants as well. We have three distinguished speakers today. Dr. Dolapo Fakuade from the University of Derby, Dr. Valeria Giannotta from the CESPI Institute from Italy, and Mr. Klaus Jurgens from the Economic First Institute from London. As gentleman code dictates, I would like to give the floor first to our female speakers, as my fellow gentleman Klaus also agrees. I would like to give floor to Dr. Dolapo Fakuade. Dr. Fakuade is the director of the Intelligence, Security and Disaster Management at the University of Derby, United Kingdom. Her expertise on the security and disaster management, instrumental work for the UK, Australia, New Zealand, United Arab Emirates, Germany, and Japan. And she was a member of the committee at the Security Council within the New Zealand Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet 2018. Before giving the floor to Dr. Fakuade, I would like to ask, how do you evaluate Turkey-Africa relations through the humanitarian and security perspective? You have 15 minutes, floor is yours.
Oh, well, thanks, Professor Akıllı, for the warm introduction and opportunity to contribute to this panel and session. I think like any other country in the world, there's so many challenges and issues that revolve around security and humanitarian. And I think I always choose these two perspectives to evaluate the progress, success and challenges of experienced by any country. And I think in the case of Turkey, that's no different. I would evaluate Turkey's Africa relations from as characterized as one of progress through its humanitarian policy and work, but also one that is also clouded by challenges through its security measures. And that's not a surprise, because some of the factors that frustrate development in Africa have also been responsible for the challenges and issues experienced by Turkey. So first, as I wrote in the paper, when you look at the success or the progress made through humanitarian aid and humanitarian policy, it's always important to understand what humanitarian aid is in the first instance. It is the material and logistics assistance to people who need it. It is usually short-term help until a long-term assistance or provision is possible by the government and other institutions. So you can understand that it is impossible for Turkey to operate successfully in Africa amidst all the humanitarian challenges and the some of the factors that frustrate development without providing humanitarian support. And you will see that from the medical aid provided by Turkey in the 1985 to countries such as Sudan, Somalia, Niger, Guinea, Gambia, Mali. This package across these countries, aforementioned countries, enables those countries to build institutional capacity and also to help the countries support their population. They were mostly medical aid. However, by 1993, most of those failed. And I think, again, it's associated with factors that frustrate development aid, which is things like colonialism, conflicts, uneven power relation, rapid population growth, and environmental factors and a natural hazard. The good thing with Turkey for Turkey is the lack of colonialism history, which makes Turkey a more favorable partner to re-enter and to continue to engage with Africa. Does that lack of colonial past makes Turkey a more favorable partner amongst many African countries. So in 2016, you will see even when Turkey, learning from past lessons, decides to still provide medical development in countries like Benin, Sudan, Niger, and Chad, there were more progress there. There were more successes there. The building of 5 new hospitals, 20 hospital renovation, spending over $1.3 million. These were, and also further $39 million, enabled those countries to improve their aid, to improve their medical aid. It is important to do this because you can only thrive and facilitate or engage in trade or other economic activities when you have political stability. And we know in most cases, those are far-fetched in many African countries, even more so now. When you have instability and when you have conflict and when you have coup and when you have natural disaster, it makes it impossible to trade. So even when some argue that Turkey's motive are underlined or hidden or have some underlying factors, the truth is you can't even thrive and proceed with trade if you don't have stability in the country. And I think this is where the challenges present itself, because even as a country that tries to present itself as one that prefers soft power as against military aid and hard power, excuse me, Turkey didn't have any choice than to engage in such in countries like Somalia and Sudan, for example, because of the ongoing friction and coup and security issues there. So, and this is where the challenges are. Challenges amongst security concerns, the use of having to use some military support and measures as against its traditional soft power. So yes, even though Turkey recalled some successes with the physical security measures taken in Libya post the war in 2014 and 2020, it remains a questionable approach in a country that has experienced and continues to experience conflict and war. Is that the best approach to proceed? Is that the best approach to demonstrate that you're providing humanitarian aid? But as I mentioned before, you can only thrive or have a country or people to govern when you have stability. And so this is quite important. And this is why I call it a dichotomy, because even though Turkey presents itself as a country that uses soft power and is one of the big donor countries in terms of humanitarian aid and foreign aid, it is also almost impossible not to mediate through security and defense for countries mentioned. And one would say that the issue of uneven power relations that existed between Africa and the West is also characterized by the relations of Turkey and Africa. You would see that when Turkey had earthquake earlier this year, Somalia was one of the countries that provided aid. And so that kind of challenges that status quo or that argument. But having said that, I think Turkey does have a record of success to draw on, but also the challenges experienced by other actors like China, like the West, like Russia, will also be some of the fundamental issues that Turkey will have to experience and navigate. To what extent that will be done, I think it remains subjective. And given that Turkey also has a own humanitarian issues to resolve post the earthquake earlier this year, but with what I have explained, you would see that you would have the humanitarian assistance and humanitarian aid dimension of it, and which is justifiable because the old saying that if you help me in my time of need, you are my friend, and I think that rings true, and it's also that, and it also underlines Turkey's relations in Africa, but also in a country and in a region or continent that you have ongoing crises, you have complex emergencies that require humanitarian aid. It remains challenging to provide such humanitarian assistance in a volatile environment. And so to ensure the safety of your people, to ensure the safety of the people you are aiming to support, it becomes inevitable not to use military measures at times. And so this remains a dichotomy for Turkey and a dilemma also for a country that wants to present herself as one who approaches other countries or whose relations is dominated by soft power, as against one that then eventually takes on military measures. So to summarize my views about this, it's easy to get thrown and overwhelmed by other factors and circumstances in a place like Africa. But when we go through humanitarian aid, understanding that is a continent that require aid and support, especially countries like Somalia, Sudan, Chad, Niger, and some of the countries that Nigeria, some of the countries that Turkey is now involved in, following the declaration of the year of the century of Africa, you would see that it's the policy and the presence and the measure and the relations of Turkey in Africa will always be that of a dance between humanitarian aid and the struggle to balance Turkey's soft power approach in Africa, because eventually the military aid often comes in as part of his humanitarian aid, which is a bit of a dichotomy because humanitarian aid is not meant to be characterized by military intervention. But as we have seen in Afghanistan and other places, it becomes inevitable because you cannot guarantee and provide aid amidst volatile environments without adopting some military measures. Thank you. I'm quite mindful of the time.
Thank you too, dear Dolas. Actually, you have already have time, but we can save this time for the maybe if we have comments from our esteemed viewers, we can use that time on that. So I would like to carry on with Dr. Valeria Giannotta. She's expert on international relations, Turkish foreign policy, Türkiye-EU relations, and regional affairs. Currently, she is the director of the Observatory on Türkiye CESP Institute in Rome. Dear Valeria, I would like to ask you, how do you define and what to expect from Turkish international relations in the center of Türkiye? The floor is yours, and you have 15 minutes.
Thank you so much, Erman, and let me thank SETA Foundation and Insight Turkey for this invitation and for organizing such an interesting event in the century of Turkey. And also, I would like to remember as well Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, that today is his passing day, who was a great leader, recognized worldwide as well, and also a source of inspiration. Now, 29th of October has marked the century of Turkey, and in these past 100 years, many things happened. The international system has changed. Many challenges were faced by Turkey, but also many opportunities and many success were achieved. Let me start from the end, from the time that we are. Nowadays, Turkey is a country, is a state which is much more aware of its potential, of its own power, and of the capability of the state. We can define Turkey, I would say, as a smart power, right? A balanced combination of hard power and soft power. Already, the colleague before me has mentioned the great achievement and skills of Turkey related to the soft power, and also the need of having a great military power in terms of defense. Nowadays, Turkey, I would say that it's not just an emerging power. It's a global power, and it's also a regional power who has many assets to play. Due to the geographical location where Turkey is, Turkey needs to defend its own interests and as well to create the condition of stability in several areas where the interests of Turkey are located. I will define Turkey as a stabilizing power, and also it's arising the role of Turkey as a mediating power. It has been visible more recently along the Russian and Ukrainian war, where Turkey just pivoting on the historical connections in the West and in the multilateral system, and also in the most recent diplomatic ties with the region and the dialogue that in the last, I will say, 20, 25 years were established with the other regional stakeholder. Turkey has been able to speak more or less with all countries in several areas and to present itself as a mediator in the conflict. It was visible, as I mentioned before, along the Russian and Ukraine war, when Turkey was able to establish and to
I believe there's a connection problem with Valeria. While we are waiting her to reconnect, okay, I believe she's reconnecting.
Valeria? Yes, I'm here. I think I had a connection problem. I don't know which point was okay. The last one.
Please carry on. Please carry on.
I think I was mentioning about the role of Turkey in the current Ukraine and Russian war, that Turkey was the only actor, actually, that was able to establish and carry on the dialogue with both parties, Russian and Ukraine. And also it was the only actor who put on the table a sort of mediation initiative. We shouldn't forget the negotiation table that was established at the margin of Antalya Forum, and then again in Istanbul, and then the constant irregular contacts of the Turkish diplomacy, and as well the personal contact of the President Recep Tayyip Erdogan with the counterparts, Putin and Zelensky. And this has marked, I do believe, a huge difference, because we have seen that the West just took a harsh stance towards Russia, and they closed any channel of dialogue that, according to a constructive and positive diplomacy, that was an approach not leading anywhere, because in a real politics and in a real and constructive diplomatic game, I think we should listen to both parties and try to find a common point. When it comes to the Russian and Ukraine war as well, it's worth to remind the great achievement of Turkey on this when it was established the Grain Corridor. That was a huge success, acknowledged by the whole international community. Indeed, it's not, by chance that the headquarters of the Grain Corridor management by UN was established once again in Istanbul. This as a meaning, beside everything, the meaning that Turkey is, first of all, is located in a very peculiar region where all the turmoils and instability, of course, has some spillover effect at the domestic level of Turkey. So the defense of the national interests of the country passed through the destabilization of the area. And I will say that the current Turkish administration is pretty much aware about this. And also, in the most recent and unfortunate time, we have seen the attempt of Ankara in trying to cool down the atmosphere and the cool down and try to find a solution as well to the, I would say, absurd conflict between Israel and Palestine. And at the very beginning of the conflict, Ankara and the diplomatic note by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Turkey was very well balanced, and they were calling just both parties to refrain from any violent action and to find a solution. And once again, Turkey and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the person of the Minister Hakan Fidan, was proposing a mechanism for establishing the conditions for a sustainable ceasefire.
I believe there's a connection issue again.
Again, I jumped down.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Please
sorry. I think my connection is very unstable. Anyway, the diplomatic. Yes, I was just mentioning about the diplomatic mechanism. You can hear me, right? I think I was mentioning about the mediation and diplomatic mechanism proposed by Turkey, made by 4 guarantor states.
Yeah, I believe you need to reconnect. As Valeria underlined, Turkey has always been the advocate of the peace and stability, not just in the region, but in the whole world as well. Especially for the last 20 years, Turkey is one of the most significant countries that providing humanitarian assistance and humanitarian aids to whom in need. I believe Valeria is back.
I'm back. I'm sorry. I'm dancing.
The third time has the charm. I believe this time there will be many connections.
Sorry for this.
No,
just for concluding, like in the very current crisis, Turkey again established a sort of mediation mechanism in order to find a solution or in order to establish a sustainable ceasefire. And still, this topic is the hot topic in the current dossier of the Turkish diplomacy. But of course, finding a solution for such a humanitarian catastrophe, such as the Israeli and Palestinian conflict, where some other interests and regional stakeholders are involved, is not going to be a very easy task, despite any effort and any dialogue open. But on the top of everything, I would like to say that Turkey is a global power and also is the key actor able to channel some very peculiar message to the international community as well. He's pretty much aware of some dysfunctionality that unfortunately we are carrying with us since the foundation of the UN system, for example, in 1945. And Turkey has been able to, through the voice of President Erdogan, to stand up by giving voice to the most unfortunate people, and also by channeling the urgent need of reforming the UN Security Council system, by saying, under the motto, the world is bigger than five, for example. Turkey has been the only actor, despite within UN there are several groups that they are just following up and warming up the idea that the UN Security Council has to be reformed. Turkey was the only one standing up and declaring without any hesitation to the world. Because the current system we are living in, of course, is not reflecting the current distribution of power. So Turkey has been the spoken person of those countries, also those organizations that they are not represented adequately within the UN system and overall within the UN security system. The reference goes to the African countries, for example, to the South American countries, or to some Asian countries, as well to some organizations. And when we speak about UN and the leverage of Turkey within UN and UN system, my mind goes as well to the role played by Emine Erdogan more recently. Thanks to the Zero Waste Initiative, for example, Emine Erdogan was able to raise awareness all around the world about this sensitive topic, the need of a sustainable approach in the international affairs as well. And it has been declared in March, the International Day of Zero Waste Initiative, and Emine Erdogan has been the first person who was, who was involved formally in the initiative, and it was acknowledged as well by the Secretary of UN. So I will say that Turkey, thanks also to a sort of dynamic agenda, to the awareness that the world is constantly changing and we are living in an international system that is multipolar, when many challenges are ahead, has been proving to be able to understand the emergency needs and to channel this to the main international table as well. Of course, in all this frame, there are some point of continuity despite the former political mandate. Starting from 1923 until now, many things have changed, but also many things have been remained. I refer, for example, to the vision of Turkey towards the West and the strong anchorage of Turkey in the West. Turkey is still a candidate member of European Union, even though this is a very highly debated issue, because the European part of Ankara towards Europe started back in the 1960s along the Ankara Agreement. Then the Custom Union was signed in 1996. Finally, at margin of Helsinki Summit in 1999, Ankara has become a candidate state. And then finally in 2005, negotiation has started. But I say that it's a very debated issue, because so far, starting from 2005 until now, not many progress have been made. And also we have been recorded a sort of blind and double standard approach from the European bloc towards Turkey, because there is an important topic that European Union has not been able to solve in the regard of Turkey, which goes to the Cyprus issue. So by letting Cyprus into the European bloc, Cyprus has put several vetoes on the negotiation chapters of Ankara, and this has created a sort of deadlock for Turkey accession process. And as well, in these years, Turkey has been facing many challenges domestically and also as a spillover effect coming from the region, terrorist attacks, for example. And this is creating a sort of a disorder. I mean, has pushed the government to take some actions that they were not really understood by the European counterparts. But still, I mean, the European vision of Turkey is valid. I would say that it is still a priority, but what is the difference is that Turkey nowadays is aware that there are some other priorities coming from the region as well. So it needs to engage with some other dynamics, and does not mean that Turkey has left behind the European dream or did not shift the axis, as some other international commenters say, against the West, preferring to speak towards some other regional stakeholders. So I do believe that if I look in perspective, what I will see a Turkey much more aware of itself, of its own capability, and also of its own structure. I mean, Turkey is investing a lot on the defense, so it means that it will become more and more independent. And it will arise, I do believe, as a leader in the region, and as well can continue in the path for channeling the need and request the reform of an international system who can be more fair, I mean fairer, by being more accountable towards the other countries in the other states in the world that they are not so very well represented. And I do believe Turkey, despite the political connotation of the country, will continue in this direction, because also what we see nowadays along the Israel and the Palestinian crisis, the support that the Turkish society is giving to the Palestinians, it's based on humanitarian feelings, and it's nothing to do with just political connotation. And I think it's something related to the Turkish civil society rather than the political interpretation of things. So I do believe that the part of this Turkey in the new century of Turkey, it will be, a rising power, giving voice and supporting the more oppressed and the states that they are not very well represented. Thank you so much, despite the dysfunctional that I had, but thank you really.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Now I would like to give the floor, last but not least, dear Herr Klaus Jurgens. Mr. Jurgens holds a postgraduate degree from the London School of Economics. His research and analysis focus on Turkey-EU relations, Austrian, German, and British foreign policies, also branding of the nation state, future of the NATO. Currently, he is director of Economy First Limited Institution in London, and he is also expert in strategic communication and media relations. Dear Klaus, before providing you the floor, I would like to ask, after the 100 years of Republic, how do you consider the continuity and change in the Turkish foreign policy? You have 15 minutes. Floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Erman, dear esteemed colleagues. There's basically nothing left to add after your introductions and these two fantastic presentations. Now, what you mentioned what is going on after the 100 years. I just came back from Stockholm. Have to go back. The university held a panel exactly about the same topic. 100 years of the Republic of Turkey. What next for the Republic of Turkey? And this is a topic which is no longer only of concern to the Republic of Turkey, but to the wider world. Understanding, as my esteemed colleagues mentioned before me, that there was a complete paradigm shift, first of all, the attitude, how Turkey is conducting foreign policies, and second, how the region, Europe, and even the wider world is trying to come to terms with it, that what I labeled once on TRT World, I hope I may say this again, it was a very frank comment. I said, Turkey is the kid no more. A very perhaps over the top comment, but I made it with all my honesty and sincerity. I said, Turkey has come of age, grown sensationally in stature, both at home and abroad, over the past 100 years. And since my research focus recently was the last 20 years, it has come of age. It accepts no longer the patting on the shoulder as, thank you, Turkey. Yes, we give you some money. And of course, we like you. You do a lot of stuff here and there. But basically, we keep you off limits. We rather criticize you for whatever you do. And when I talk about European media, I often say, dear colleagues in Europe, do you wake up another day and simply say, what negative news can I provide about modern Turkey today? And I tell them, look, friends, you learned your profession same like I do. Find a new topic, please. But that was kind of introduction. I made very brief five points, if I may. What interests me a lot about Turkey's foreign policy success over the past 2 decades in particular is how does the public in Turkey interpret it? And this is where I went back to 2003 and our famous and much lauded professor of international relations, Christopher Hill from London School of Economics. He published his book in 2003, The Changing Politics of Foreign Policy. He was the doyen, the #1 of international relations analysis and studies. And he tried to figure out, is international relations part of foreign policy, or are foreign policies part of international relations? And I believe Erman Bey would agree this debate is ongoing, and it'll probably go on for the next 20 or 50 years, I don't know. But what I really like about this 2003 publication, by pure coincidence, when Turkey embarked on her new path towards proactive 360 degrees foreign policies, he said, it is not enough that the state acts as a foreign policy maker, but you have to factor in the public opinion. Now, this was sensational. Public opinion, foreign policy is for diplomacy, for diplomats, for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, for international relations experts about trade and what have you. But the public, would the public ever care? He was right, because one of the cornerstones of Recep Tayyip Erdogan's, the president, the current government, but a much wider spectrum. I would almost go to say 70–80% of the Turkish population. They found back pride. They realized we are a nation that can do it. We can be respected around the world. And if some people don't respect us, we will tell them there is no no yes, but we will actually make our point. So the public dimension in many countries often overlooked in foreign policy making, going back to 2003, and why almost an entire nation stands behind the president, the nation. Of course, we mentioned the founder, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and I do with all respect. Every year I do the same and stop in my ways. It's a very special day, a very special moment, regardless of whether you have been born here, married, or become a new arrival. It is a moment to be remembered with honor and pride. Now, if you look into this, take the public into account. Don't belittle the public anymore. Don't just say, you are the electorate, and every 4 or 5 or whatever years you come and vote for us, and we love you anyway. The current government, the president, the mainstream politics have understood that you have to treat the electorate with respect. And if you create a strong, modern, powerful nation state once more, that actually this is the right thing to do. So this is just, don't get me wrong, I don't want to go into, you always say the Germans are the philosophers and thinkers. We might have been, definitely not my baby boomer generation, unfortunately, but there is a past. You actually try to reflect on things. And I think a lot about how is this ongoing success possible? Is it only domestic politics? And I've come to the conclusion, no. The increasing positive, influential, respected, cherished stature of modern Turkey outside of Turkey is what makes people living in Turkey and the Turkish communities abroad very, very proud. And I'm so, so happy to see that. 3 very, very brief points. I thought about when did this actually change? Was it 1950, 1970, 1980, whenever? And modestly, I suggested that what my dear colleague friend Valeria mentioned before, the 2005 Brussels summit, which almost ended in catastrophe. I come back to Austria in a minute, but it was a verbal and diplomatic fight between the Austrian foreign minister at the time and the British foreign minister at the time. And the British foreign minister at the time, I have to be honest about this, actually pushed it through that the EU accession talks begin in earnest. But as my colleagues said already, nothing sensational happened ever after, still being kept in the waiting room. Why do I label this the catalyst of foreign policy change for modern Turkey? Modern Turkey realized, well, we want to be part of the club. We do our best. We have the capability, as I was told at the time, in 24 months actually to tick off basically all EU acquis accession chapters. We have some problems with environment because it was extremely expensive. We had to set up the a new public procurement agency, which was duly set up in Beşiktaş in Ankara. And but basically it could have been done only if all the chapters would have been opened and closed and not vetoed, blocked by a few members of the, by that time, European Union. I think Ankara woke up at the time and said, look, we want to do our best, but if it doesn't work out that way, we will still have a modern, prosperous, democratic Turkey. Joining the bloc is state policy, as was reiterated a few weeks ago, but we want to be treated with respect. I think this was the catalyst for whatever happened afterwards. The second point I very often mention is bilateral relations. If I still have 1 minute each, United Kingdom, Turkey relations are going from strength to strength. And I wish to come back to the year 2016 and the fateful events. Some people tell me, Klaus, don't always bang on this topic. It is in the past, but this is the past which actually guaranteed the future of democracy. It was no one else than Sir Alan Duncan, at the time the Minister for European Affairs of the British government, who was the first politician to set foot onto Turkish territory after the heinous 2016 FETÖ coup attempt. And the Turks remember, and the British know about it. And this symbolizes that from 2002, 2003 until 2016, bilateral relations became part and parcel of a successful foreign policy. Not only the wider picture, the bigger issues, but individual member states' relations, I believe Hill would say international relations between two actors, then become part and parcel of a wider foreign policy making for the common good of the Turkish nation, and by that not being anti the common good of any other nation, but wanting to be treated with respect. The second, Austria, I think it's my last minute, Minister Kocher recently accompanied Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer to Ankara, which I labeled and other labeled as a historic visit. There was an ice age between bilateral relations, not caused by Turkey, if I may say so. And it is a fantastic sign that bilateral relations with bigger countries, with smaller countries, ultimately form the wider picture of proactive foreign policy making. You talk with people eye to eye. You try to decipher their mindsets. You understand if there's a problem. And Herr Nehammer's visit was, Chancellor Nehammer's visit was a good example. Of course, in the press conference, he said that perhaps European Union membership is not the perfect utopian vision for modern Turkey. But other people then commented, give Austria a chance, let the politicians come back more often, see on the ground what has changed in the past 20 years, make up your mind, go home, talk to mainstream media and say, look, this is not the place we thought we knew about. And why did no one ever tell us? Turkey did, but some segments in Europe didn't. Last point, promised 45 seconds. Yes, indeed, United Nations, coming from bilateral relations to European Union accession to even the branding of a nation state, dropping splendid isolation, you see a Turkey which has, put it like this is perhaps a journalistic lingo, having the clout, having the guts to say, same like I mentioned before, we are not the kid anymore. No one takes responsibility in the United Nations for its reform to make sure that everyone in the world is heard. As Valeria said, the world is indeed bigger than 5, as the president said before. Now, this is perhaps a milestone of all milestones that a modern, having long coming of age, proactive Republic of Turkey on the eve of 100 years, looking to the next 100 years, from one century to the next century, actually says, by now we can do it. We can suggest things to other member states of the United Nations, not because we want to look down on them, but we want to treat everyone eye to eye, and we respect and expect exactly the same. I think this is what I really wanted to say. Sorry if I exceeded my time by 1 or 2 minutes, but I think this public dimension in explaining to the Turkish electorate that Turkey has grown in stature tremendously, this makes the people proud and not nationalistic, not populist like in many European countries. No, just proud, happy to be a Turk. Amazing, simply amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Klaus, for your contribution. Well, actually, today we have distinguished speakers, and we covered many significant parts of the Turkish foreign policy. As dear Klaus and Valeria also mentioned, and apart from my introduction at the very beginning, Turkey went through quite a challenges and endured crisis in the foreign policy through those last 100 years. Especially during the Cold War years, Turkey's foreign policy is related with the single destination. But when we compare to the last 20 years, thanks to the President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's leadership, Turkey has widened the foreign policy destinations all around the world. And as a significant country in the international system, that's a must that Turkey had to expand and diversify the foreign policy all around the world. As one of the focal points for the Turkish foreign policy, Turkey is also a very important player, especially for the humanitarian assistance in the whole world. So being one of the leaders of the humanitarian assistance, humanitarian aids in the international system, Turkey's foreign policy is also crowned by the humanitarian diplomacy as well. That's not just limited with providing the humanitarian assistance to whom in need, but also providing the negotiation, being the mediator for the cooling down the escalated crisis situations as well. As I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, that Turkey is the advocate of the stability and peace, not just in the region she relates, but also for the whole world. For instance, as Valeria mentioned, the situation in the Russia and the Ukraine war, Turkey is the most significant country, and maybe one of the few countries that's speaking about peace for the conflicting sides for the Russia-Ukrainian war, as well as the recent unfortunate events in the Gaza Strip, Turkey is one of the significant players for the cooling down the escalating situations, especially for the civilians and the children. So, as we are coming to the conclusion, I would like to ask to our distinguished speakers if they would like to add for the conclusion as well, if they have final words. Dear Dolapo, dear Valeria, dear Klaus, would like to add for the conclusion?
Yeah, I would add something. I think based on your summary and what Valeria and Klaus have said, I think one of the things that Turkey continue to maximize, or I would say seize the moment, is because more than ever, we now are in the era of crisis and disaster. And in some of the discussion I've had with you and other people around Turkey is that this disaster diplomacy and crisis diplomacy, which gives Turkey a pathway as against the waning popularity of the West, who is known for otherwise. So like you've made reference to the case of Ukraine, Russia, Gaza, Israel, and I think other countries seems to be modeling this approach. You see Qatar acting as a mediator in the negotiation with the Taliban and the West and the UN, and also vice versa, and so has made himself a regional player in the Gulf. So conflict, crisis, or disaster at times is seen to provide an opportunity for pathway into countries and into area and to places. We saw that with Morocco recently with the earthquake they had in September this year. They only accepted aid from their partner countries, from the countries which they have bilateral relations with. And it was an interesting thing to behold, because normally you would see like the floodgates open and everybody wanted to provide aid, but it's understanding that beneath those assistance comes a compromise to your sovereignty as a country. And so countries are more now aware of how much giveaway or how much of your sovereignty they give away in the time of aid. And also the public opinion that Klaus mentioned is very true. Electoral of the public are very notorious for punishing a leader who does not is not sensitive to their views about what the foreign policy is doing or not doing back at home. And we saw that with Bush Sr. In the US, when he did not win the second term of the election because of the failed so-called foreign policy. So you see the connection between all this. I think going forward for Turkey is understanding the drivers and how to seize the moment, because we know that shock to the system or disruption or disaster, we've seen how COVID has refined how we approach things. We see how that is a decade defining, it's changed the nature of the landscape of foreign policy and interactions. For some of the countries who locked themselves up, they kind of pulled themselves apart. You've seen regional players re-emerge. You've seen the relationship with Turkey and UK, United Kingdom, going stronger. And also a driver to that is because the UK has left the EU. And so it's so much isolated itself that it's now important to start looking for new players in that sense. So we do have to pay attention to some of these drivers and an opportunity to seize the moment. And as long as Turkey is able to do that in the new century, I think it will be a stronger voice in a world where the West is gradually losing their popularity because of past experiences and past reputation. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Dolapo. Now I would like to give floor to Valeria, but I believe we have a question for Valeria. Mr. Zafar Gök wrote, do you think Turkey can establish a mediation platform for Gaza issue like Ukraine, Russia?
I do believe, well, thank you for the question. I think this time, I mean, despite the efforts, the achievement can be more difficult because, as I said before, there are many regional stakeholders. There are many cleavages, fractures in the region along ethnic, religion, and interest-based lines. And as well, there is again a sort of international polarization between, I will say, it's not very good, ethical to say, but my mind goes back to the cleavage and dividing line between the West and the rest. You know, because when I look at the West, there is this strong support to Israel, despite anything anything happened, and also the European Union. I mean, there is a sort of blind approach, right? We do not want to send humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip because they are afraid that they will end up in Hamas hands. And the fact that, and this is a very tricky point, the fact that Turkey has a constant relations and dialogue open with Hamas, which is considered a liberation movement and not a terroristic organization, as the West believe, this may create a sort of trouble for Turkey to arise as a mediator, because the perception from the West is that Turkey is standing up close to the terrorists. Despite the many efforts in delivering aid and trying to mitigate the humanitarian catastrophe. Again, there is a sort of deadlock situation where the West is just locking behind a sort of politically correctness, which is not contingent and which is not consistent to the situation. The effort that Turkey is trying to, is proving, and the solution that he's trying to offer, but unfortunately so far I see that if there is no effective move from US, from the European bloc, from the West in general, the solution will be late to come. So that the situation for Turkey as a mediation role will be more tricky, more difficult to achieve concrete results, I think, in the medium term. I will say like this. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Valeria. But we also have another question towards to you, if I may. Mr. Onur Balcı asked, you talk about changing international system, and during this process, mediating role of Turkey. Do you think that EU and its members understand security threats Turkey have faced for last years? Also, do you think Italian government can have a mediator role between EU and Turkey?
Yeah.
You close the microphone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I start from the Italian side. When it comes to Italy, Turkey, and the European Union, I will say that Italy, despite the government, despite the political connotation of the government, has been always trying to channel the Turkey request on the European tables. Also, when the situation was very tense, after the Ajaccio summit, for example, when some European countries wanted to sanction Turkey, Italy has been arising as a country standing and trying to moderate, actually, the environment and channeling the Turkey request. Because, the relations between Turkey and Italy are very solid, and they are connotated by historical roots, a sort of emotional feelings connecting the people. And also, Turkey and Italy face the same challenges coming from the Mediterranean area and the basin. So we deeply understand each other. When it comes to the European bloc, in general terms, I will say that unfortunately there is a double standard towards Turkey. It's sort of like pushing Turkey to do the dirty job because European Union stands in a sort of politically correctness point. But again, it will come the time when the dust of this war in Russia and Ukraine, and again when the dust of the other conflict in the region, Israel and Palestine, it will come the time when European Union has definitely to decide what does it want from Turkey? Because it is a candidate member, negotiation has started, full of problems and deadlock. But when it comes to some specific sectors, Turkey has been treated as a third country. My mind goes to the refugee deals, for example, or to some other cooperation area. As well, in the Ukrainian and Russian war, it has been acknowledged the role of Turkey in supporting Ukraine by giving drones and military equipment. So, and this gets hand to hand with the European approach in the war, right? So the main question is, after the war, what kind of role Turkey may play in the defense system or in defense structure of Europe? And as well, when we speak about Europe, we need to speak about NATO too, right? Because, I mean, Europe wasn't able to develop a defense system by itself. Europe, I mean, most of the European countries are members of NATO, and it's obvious that Turkey is a key player. It's a sort of front line for the threats coming from the south and the east of the alliance. Sometimes the role of Turkey has been much debated and criticized. I mean, there are the French president, for example, who spoke about the brain death of the NATO system, referring to Turkey. But it's almost also obvious, I will say, that if we look at the location, as I mentioned before, of Turkey, and the needs and the neighborhood, which is not an easy neighborhood at all, Turkey needs to have a strategic autonomy to protect itself, to try to stabilizing the region, also in order to avoid a spillover on the NATO, on the NATO stability, on the NATO security system. So here again, we need a bit more understanding maybe from the Western side towards Turkey. Because Turkey is embedded in the multilateral system. Turkey is doing its part, but on the other side, it seems they act sometimes the gendarme of Turkey, right? Stick and carrot anytime. So I do believe that Turkey is member already of the Western system. I mean, despite the fact that Turkey is not member of European Union, if we look at the trade flow of the investment, Turkey is already into the European Union. As well as coming to the question, if we look at the defense system, Turkey is a key player in the defense system of Europe and NATO and in the West in general. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers. Dear Klaus, would you like to have last words for the conclusion?
No, dear colleague, there's basically nothing to add. Just one point, what was just mentioned, this anchoring in the West. Yes, of course, Turkey is anchored in the West, but in the past 20 years embarked on 360 degrees foreign policy, as I believe Ibrahim Kalin was the first one to coin that phrase, if I'm not wrong, according to Daily Sabah. If I quoted it correctly, please correct me. Now, I think it is part and parcel. You have to look north, east, and south, and you still can have a vocation looking west. The difference between the past, and you know I'm very outspoken about this, the difference between the past is when you had a fake westernization, is now that you don't want any fake westernization, but you want to be treated with respect by the West, and then you extend your hand. This is the huge psychological achievement of the current government. This is not a party political broadcast. I would say this if another party is in power and would have achieved the same. This is sensational. You don't have to be pretending anymore. And then when you go back home, oh no, basically we don't like the West anyhow. This is totally different, a different generation, different politicians, different people. They say, yes, we do look West. We like it. our kids go and study there. We have perfect bilateral relations, but at the same time, we have a right to look north, east, south, because what Valeria said, we are right in the middle of everyone and everything. And I think maybe this is one of the biggest achievements, that you distinguish between a fake Westernization and an honest looking West, on the condition that the West is honestly looking east. Lots of things to be done.
Thank you, dear Klaus, for your last closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being today with us, with your valuable contributions, your questions. And I also would like to thank again to our distinguished speakers for being here to attending our panels. For our viewers, I would like to, I also have some news. This is the very first of the panel series. Next week, we will carry on with the second panel of the series as well, with new guests, of course. So hope to see you again at the same time next week. I also would like to thank Dr. Fakuade, Dr. Giannotta, and Mr. Jurgens for being here today and attending to the panel. Thank you so much. So see you at the next web panel. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.